Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Facebook page and our Facebook Live event today. My name is Erika Davis. I am an economic disaster recovery consultant for the Watertown Oswego Small Business Development Center. This is a follow-up to a webinar that we did called Beyond Basic Bookkeeping back at the end of January with Amanda Stickel, who's a bookkeeper here in the Watertown area. And she is joined today by the Watertown Oswego advisors. So I want to welcome John Halleron and Kiah Sugrue and Robin Stephenson and Amanda Stickel. I'm going to start by asking a general question of the advisors. And Amanda, you should feel free to chime in here anytime. But I'm wondering, what are the most common bookkeeping or accounting questions that you're asked by your clients?
What can I deduct? What can I write off? And if I've already bought the equipment before I started the business, can I still write it off?
Big questions, and there have been changes that way too lately, right? So very important. Any comments about that?
Yeah, that is definitely a question I get asked a lot too. And it's always a surprising question to me. But the most easiest answer to that is if it's related to your business and it's something regularly used in your business, then yes, you can deduct it. So if you are, going to Staples and buying some printer paper and that's for your business, then yes, it's deductible.
John, any other specific questions about deductions?
I guess the follow-up would be, and I get this quite a bit, well, I've already bought a printer and I've already bought, a computer and so forth, but I haven't opened the business yet. Can I still write that off as equipment when I do open the business?
So if they bought it with the intent for the business, so before they started the business, they're like, okay, this is my plan. I'm going to be starting a business. I know I need a computer and a printer. Let me get that before I start getting going in the business. Those are still deductible. That will be your startup costs. With those will be kind of bundled together and capitalized over 3 to 5 years, which means that you'll be able to take a portion of that expense over 3 to 5 years in your tax return instead of taking that huge bulk expense and having a huge loss that first year.
A lot of my clients ask whether they should take the mileage deduction or they should take the repair and maintenance deduction. I don't know if you can kind of clarify and touch upon that, Amanda. I know a lot of times people end up taking the mileage deduction because it ends up working out for them or working out in their favor, but what do you think?
So it'll really depend on what their business is and how much mileage they're actually using and the percentage of the vehicle that they're actually using. But that is an option. If they are traveling for business purposes, you can take the standard mileage, which for 2020 was 57.5 cents, and it's actually gone down for 2021. So it's only 56 cents per mile. So you can take that, or you can take the actual expenses, which would include your gas, your oil, any repairs, any maintenance to it, tires. If it's a leased vehicle, the lease payments. The big thing though is if you are taking either of them, you should be still keeping track of your mileage. So having like a mileage log where you record your beginning odometer reading, and then your ending, and the mileage in between, the purpose of the trip, the time, who you're meeting with, all the good stuff that they want to know. And so keeping that along with some oil change receipts, because those actually keep track of your odometer reading. So that's just the extra backup in case the IRS or anybody has questions, they can look at that and be like, okay, you weren't just pulling a number out of nowhere. So the big thing too is people have the option to either, go buy a vehicle or lease a vehicle. If you are just buying a vehicle, the one question that you need to, or one thing you need to think about is if you want to be using the mileage rate, you have to use it the first year you place it in your business. And then you can start alternating. As far as leased vehicles, whatever you pick is what you're stuck with throughout the lease term.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you for clarifying that.
Okay. Any other common questions in addition to tax deductions that you guys hear on a regular basis?
Yeah, a lot of clients, the good majority of our clients are home-based businesses. And they don't understand, can they write off business use to your home? And if so, how does that work?
Yep, I think that's going to be a huge thing this year too for tax time, because everybody's working in their homes more. So you can take a home office deduction, but the space has to be used exclusively and regularly for your business. So if you're just using like your dining room table to kind of go through things, it doesn't really count. But if you have a space in your dining room that you have like a corner, it has a little desk and that's just your space, you can. What I recommend for people in that type of situation is to, they can take like painter's tape and tape it off on the floor, or you could get those, those stand up like changing screens and kind of separate it from everything else. And then just measuring it out. So measure the length and the width of your office to get your square footage, and then pulling up the square footage of your whole house and giving that to your tax preparer, and they can take the portion of your home expenses. And there's two options with that too. So there's an easy method, which would just be $5 per square foot up to $1,500, or you can actually break down your home expenses and take the portion based off of the ration that's actually for your business. So your mortgage interest, your property taxes, utilities, your internet, your phone, that can all be broken up into that percentage for your home office.
So that number might even be a little bit more than the $1,500, like
Yes.
you're saying by the $5. Oh, that's a good idea.
Yep.
Now, to caveat a little bit back to the mileage, but business use your home, some clients are branching out. So they have their home office and they're doing stuff there, but they're branching and doing like a kiosk somewhere, either at a mall or at the PX. Can they write the mileage off from the home office to the other shop?
Yeah, so if you have a qualified home office and you're claiming your home office, then that is your business space. So going from one business location to the next business location is mileage write-off. So even if you are going to the post office to mail business items, then you can claim that from your home to the post office and back. If you didn't have a home office, maybe you have like a office somewhere else in your town, from your home to that office is not deductible. But if you go to your office and then from the office you go to the post office or to a client's office, you can claim that in between.
Okay. Yeah.
I have a quick question. Do you recommend any in particular apps to use for mileage, like record keeping?
So if you have QuickBooks Online, they have an app right in their system that you can use for tracking mileage. Mile IQ, you can do that. There's a free option, and then after certain settings, you have to pay a monthly fee. Even just using Google Maps, we're actually pinpointing your location and then the location that you're going to, so it tracks your actual location. That's helpful too for IRS records if they were to audit you. Having anything that has your location in it and where you've been traveling will help clarify that it's real.
And another question, how many different vehicles can you write off as far
So
as mileage?
you should have under 5 before you're considered a fleet. And then there's a different method between that. So under 5 will be good and not throw any red flags.
But let's say there's, a sole proprietor has 3 cars and they use a different car each day, can they still write off the mileage on those vehicles for business expenses?
Yep, as long as they're keeping track of their mileage log and their receipts and just crossing their T's and dotting their I's, as long as they have the records, then yes.
Okay, good. Because that's a question I get a lot too.
Yep, there's always most of the time there's a spouse vehicle and then your vehicle, and you can alternate between the two as long as you have the documentation.
One more small question. I actually just had this asked of me last week. We're in a Zoom meeting and they're showing me their site and then asking write-offs. And I said, yep, your equipment, your materials. And she goes, well, this is my food area. I go, food? Well, because they got to eat lunch and stuff. How much can they write off on that? I know if you go to a meeting with a client and say you're having lunch somewhere, as long as you're talking business, sure, that's a write-off. But they're talking like snacks and foods. So, because they're operating, they can't leave the shop. Is something like that a write-off?
So if they're going to like Sam's and buying like bulk goldfish snack packages or something for the office, then yes, that would be a deduction. And like you were saying, if you are going to a lunch meeting, make sure you keep your receipts and write on the receipt the purpose of the meeting and who you were meeting with, and then you can claim up to 50% of that.
Okay. So it's a family-run business. The family goes to dinner, but they have to talk about like the next day scheduling or, what the production's going to be. It's not a client, it's family. Is that also, as long as they're talking business, write off?
If they're all employees, then yes. Yep.
Okay.
All right. So what about any other common questions, that you advisors are often hearing as far as just general questions about bookkeeping? Anything else?
What should I be? Should I be a sole proprietor? Should I be an LLC? Should I be a subchapter S? Should I be a corporation? What do you suggest? Well, I suggest you talk to your accountant and attorney, but
Yeah,
I get a lot of that.
It definitely depends on your business and your assets and your plans for your business. It really depends. There's no straight answer. Sole proprietor is the easiest, quickest, low cost method to start with. If you're kind of just wanting to dip your toes in, kind of trial run it and see how it goes, that's definitely the first step that you can take. And there's nothing wrong with starting with a sole proprietorship and then changing it in the future, as long as you definitely recommend having a business attorney help you if you're going to be going into the LLC or corporations. There's lots of legal forms to file. You can definitely do it yourself too if you go to the New York State website for all the corporation stuff. With an LLC, if you're just a single member LLC, you are still treated as a disregarded entity, which just means that you're not separate from your business. It's still you, and you're still filing it with your personal taxes, just as you would with a sole proprietor. It does provide you with, like it's called, it's a limited liability. It provides you with limited protection against your personal assets. If you start commingling personal expenses in with your business as an LLC, they being New York or your state can void your LLC and you're just going to be sole proprietor. There are some ways to kind of benefit from an LLC. You can still be an LLC and be taxed as an S corporation. The benefit with that would be you have the ability to be on payroll. So a sole proprietor and LLC member, you as an owner shouldn't be on payroll, but as an S corp, you can be on payroll. You're taking a reasonable salary. It's lowering your profit line, and you're being taxed less because you're paying employee taxes. So there's some math in there. But so you can still avoid, you can be the LLC, but avoid all the, corporation regulations if you go that route, instead of just going straight into an S Corp or a C Corp. Because there's lots of regulations and filing admin stuff that you have to do if you're going to go into the corporation route. Most of the times just going sole proprietor or LLC taxes and S Corp is usually the best route to go.
One question came in too related to business structure. Who should you talk to first about your business structure, accountant or attorney?
My opinion, and I'd like to know everybody else's, but would be to talk with your accountant first. A lot of attorneys automatically recommend LLC, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best route for you. It really depends, like I was saying, on your business plan, who's going to be joining you in the business, your business profits, your personal assets. It just really depends. So talking with your accountant first is my recommendation.
I would second that, because a lot of it, like you say, a lot of attorneys just rush you through, find out you made a mistake in the end. But I agree. Talk with your accountant first.
Right. I think I even saw one time, because one of my clients did that. His attorney said, be an LLC. And when he went to do his taxes, his accountant was like, no, you should have been regular incorporated. And I don't know if it's changed. I'd have to do some checking, but he had to stay as an LLC for 2 years before he could change his corporate structure.
The one piece of advice I would give you is don't listen to your friends.
Exactly.
Oh, if I form an LLC, they can't touch me. Well, guess what?
Yeah. So important to have discussions about it with, at the right time and with the right professionals, right? And we'll emphasize professional here for sure. So great question. Thank you. Anything else about business structure or LLC versus incorporating?
Do it right the first time. It's a lot cheaper to do it right the first time than to clean up after it.
Yeah, right. And Amanda, there are considerations about or your profits, right? Or your revenue as far as what makes sense. Like in other words, it might make sense if you're an LLC based on the kind of money you're making to switch to an S Corp, right? Is that true?
Yeah, for sure. I usually recommend to my clients, if they have, 50,000 or more a year in profits, and they plan for that to be consistently the profit at the end of the year, then they should probably look into being taxed as an S Corp, because then you can put yourself on payroll. You can take that salary for 40 or 50,000, whatever is reasonable for your business. And then it's kind of cutting your taxes, because you are paying payroll taxes, but it's a little bit, it gives you that you're not paying the taxes on the whole $50,000 at the end of the year. So it gives you a little bit of a tax advantage there.
Right. Great. Yeah. And that's based on net income, right? Not gross profit, but net income.
Net. Yep. So after your income, get rid of your expenses, then you have your net income. Your
bottom line. Yeah. Okay. Great. Excellent. Okay. One question that's come up too is, Amanda, is what kind of bookkeeping system, people are wondering what kind of system is best for them. I know that's kind of a situational question, but are there some general guidelines that way?
Yep. Like you said, a lot of times it does depend. So if you're really small, feel free to use, Excel if you're an Excel person, or going to get like a Dome accounting journal. Those are always my favorite with my small clients who have them filled out. And it's like, oh, this is awesome for taxes. If you have more transactions a month, more than like 30 a month, I think you'd find benefit in checking out QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Desktop. There's Wave, there's Xero. There's so many different accounting programs out there for you to look into. And also, hiring a bookkeeper, that can be a great advantage. There's so many softwares available that are pretty user-friendly, but at the same time, they're so user-friendly that it's so easy to make mistakes and have no idea what you did and realize that you made a mistake. So having a bookkeeper to check in on you once a month or once a quarter, just to make sure everything's kind of flowing where it should be, and, you know, to provide you with some advice and tips and recommendations to help for tax time and just keeping you on track.
Yeah, remind you of your quarterly estimated taxes or your.
Yes, yeah, that's great for, you know, tax planning too, to have a professional review your information, your financials every quarter and kind of be like, okay, well, based off of this information, it looks like you, if it keeps going this way throughout the year, you're going to be having this tax liability. So let's send or set aside this portion of your profits and for your taxes, so that at the year end, it's not, oh, you have $15,000 due. It's okay, we made these payments, so it's okay. And it was throughout the year, so it wasn't as dramatic.
Yeah. Great. We do have some more questions coming in. We're going to backtrack a little bit and get back to some questions about business structure. But Robin, did you have a question about systems? Or?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's you'll also suggest, I always tell my business owners that they should be involved in doing those bookkeeping and knowing, because they understand what revenues, where their revenues are coming from and where their expenses are going. But it definitely is good to have that professional kind of look over their shoulder, as you said, to make sure they're doing it right, because they also have to know where their money's going and when it's time to rob Peter to pay Paul. But another thing is, I also encourage separate business from personal.
Yeah, for sure.
Lots of times they don't. They dump it all on the personal and they're not understanding it. So, and you do agree with that too, right, Amanda?
Yep, definitely keeping personal separate. Like we were saying with the LLC, like if you start mixing your personal in there, you can totally screw up your business structure. And I'm sure most people have heard piercing the corporate veil. So you start putting personal expenses into your business account, they're going to start digging in even deeper, and they'll be able to pull up your personal stuff and really check into your life and see where all your money's going and where all the money's coming from. And just, it's best just to keep it separate.
And just to piggyback off that same theme, by turning everything over to a bookkeeper, or whether it's internal or external, if you don't understand what's going on, you open yourself up to the possibility of fraud.
Right.
Even something as simple as reconciling your own checkbook is a big issue, because you get to see where the checks are going, especially numerically. You know, if you're in the 300 series of checks and all of a sudden there's a 1000 series that comes in, something's wrong. And unless you take the time to look at that, you're never going to know.
Right.
Exactly. Having that checks and balances is really important. And having a professional that you actually trust and, you know, are able to still have access to your books, which is why I like QuickBooks Online, is because we both have access. And then even every month I send them reports, detailed reports, so they can go through and make sure that they're understanding where their money has gone and where it's come from. And then I also like to include their bank register so that they can make sure that there's no weird Amazon charge and they don't shop on Amazon, you know, and just definitely making sure they understand their financials, because like Robin was saying, you need to be able to understand your situation to be able to make educated decisions. Like the bookkeeper or accountant, they're there to make sure that everything's with regulation and to guide you in the right direction. It's your business though. You have to be knowledgeable in it to be able to make the decisions.
You mentioned online or QuickBooks Online, and I always recommend, no matter what kind of accounting system you use, just make sure you back it up to the cloud, so you always have access to it, just in case, God forbid, you have a fire or your computer crashes or something happens. You can always access you know, your records. And we also at the SBDC, we actually there was an old advisor that took the Dome bookkeeping system and put it into an Excel format, and we share that with our clients all the time. So they, it saves them from having to go to Staples or, purchase a bookkeeping, our bookkeeping software. So, when you're starting out, money's tight. And so it's it's a nice savings for them.
Or have to figure out how to use Excel.
Yeah. Well, we go through it with them. We teach them how, but, if you have a general idea on how to use Excel, it's a nice, inexpensive, cost-free method.
Yeah, we've set up all the formulas and everything. They just plug in their vendor number, the check, cash, or credit number, and the dollar amount and what account it goes to, and it implodes it. So we tried to make it as simple and user-friendly as we can, because some people, they're busy, and some people hate paper.
Yeah, that's great, because people don't realize that you're offering, you have that as a resource too at the SBDC centers. So that's really great. So one of the questions from earlier was, what is the easiest way to get paid as a sole proprietor? I know you covered a little bit of this, Amanda, but should you add the owner to the regular payroll?
No. I mean, if you're having a payroll provider do it, you can ask them for a check, but it's not going to be on payroll. It's just going to be a draw check. So there's no taxes withheld. It's just you're taking straight money from your business. I definitely recommend paying yourself at least once a month. I mean, you want to reap some benefits from all the hard work that you're doing in your business. I know most people don't go into business just to not get paid. So yeah, paying yourself is important, but if you're a sole proprietor, you're not going to be on payroll. So just being mindful of, setting money aside just in case, maybe like 15% from that, whatever you take from your business, take 15% and set it aside into savings account, just in case for taxes.
Okay, another question is it possible to have employees with a sole proprietor structure, or do you have to switch to an S Corp if you hire somebody?
Nope. So sole proprietors, you can have payroll and employees. You as the owner can't be on payroll. It just kind of ends up double taxing you, so it's not really beneficial at all. But yes, you can have payroll. Just making sure you have an employer ID number, which is free and easy to get off irs.gov, and then going through. I'm sure everybody watching is from New York State, so going through the New York State setup. And making sure you have all the IDs you need and all the insurances, and you have a good payroll provider that you trust. Or if you want to do it on your own, if you have QuickBooks, you can do it. They have full service payroll that they just do everything. You just enter in the hours for the employees.
Amanda, you mentioned an EIN, the employer ID number. A lot of sole proprietors are afraid of that because it is an employer ID number. Do you recommend they get an EIN even if they're the only person?
I personally do. That way you're not just, putting your social security number on all these forms for other people, especially if you have to fill out a W-9 for other businesses if they're going to be paying you. So EIN, it doesn't mean you have to have payroll. It's just pretty much like a business ID number. And it's always going to be associated with your name. So I recommend just doing it. It asks you questions when you set it up. Just make sure you say you don't plan to have on any payroll. Otherwise, if you click you plan on having payroll, they're going to expect to be seeing those payroll tax returns. So just going through the questions one by one and reading through them. It's
a very easy website to navigate.
Super easy, yes.
A lot easier than the New York State sales tax one.
Yes.
I'm noticing banks are requiring sole proprietors to have an EIN.
Yep, I think it makes them look more legit, and it just adds to that documentation to make sure that there's no fraud happening.
Yeah. What is that website? I don't know. Maybe we could supply a link to
IRS.gov.
IRS.gov. Yep.
That's what I thought it was federal. So IRS.gov. And then I don't know if there's maybe another page that goes right.
Businesses. Yeah. If you go to IRS.gov/businesses, it'll bring you right to the application to click on.
Okay. All right.
And
very good.
It is free. So if you end up on a site that charges you $280, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
You know, I've had people do that.
Do that. Go to like .com or something like that and
Mm-hmm.
it'll get you.
I have a question on, while we're talking structures. How about a husband and wife ownership? What would be the best legal structure for that? Sole proprietorship, partnership, corporation? Amanda, what do you suggest?
So it just again depends. If you just want to do the sole proprietor, you both will just fill out your own businesses, just splitting it, 50-50, and husband claims it here and wife claims it here. Same with, the LLC, if it just kind of just splitting it. So it really just depends. And even if you do the corporation side of it, you're going to get the K1, which will still, again, just split it, depending on how you set up.
Okay.
Interesting. Here's a good question. What is the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant?
Okay, so with this one, it really depends. I personally go back and forth between calling myself a bookkeeper and accountant because I have the education. You just have to be mindful of, most people think accountant, they think a CPA, which is a certified public accountant, which I'm not. But a CPA, they are really great for, audits and really complicated tax returns and really large businesses. Bookkeeper, I think of just more for like, even with CPAs, they have bookkeepers on payroll. It's just more of like the manual internal work of, categorizing your expenses and your income and doing all that, reconciliations, making sure everything matches. The accountant goes a step further and analyzes your reports. They generate and analyze your reports, and they can lead you in the correct direction that you need to be going into.
Great. Another question coming in. What questions should I be asking when I interview a bookkeeper CPA to hire or a CPA to hire?
That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
I am definitely big on talking with people before either of us give a decision. Me personally, I like to be on good terms with people. So like matching personality wise and value wise. So maybe asking if you're big on family, maybe asking how they feel about family being a part of their business. Maybe I always make sure I work from home and I homeschool my kids. So I always make sure that people aren't going to be scared of kids, because every now and then I'll get a knock on my door asking for chicken nuggets, even if I've already fed them before the meeting. So just making sure that we're on the same page. And then as far as like experience wise, you can ask them for their education, what kind of experience do they have in the bookkeeping accounting world? Do they have an educational background on it? What type of organizations have they worked with? What type of business industries do they work with? Some people only work with construction workers. Some people only work with photographers. So just making sure that they understand your business and you personally is going to be big. And then also making sure you trust them, feel comfortable with them, and if they want references, you can ask if they have a client that they wouldn't mind reaching out to. I like to post on my Facebook page a bunch of referrals, just so people know that I'm a real person, that I actually work with people and they love me. So yeah.
Yeah, and
I guess the point of understanding whether or not they're actually business accountants and bookkeepers is important too. Just like an attorney. Some attorneys are real estate attorneys, some are business attorneys. Some people just are happy doing personal taxes and not worrying about everything. So again, like Amanda said, make sure they understand what you're doing.
It also comes into play when we're asking earlier, what type of bookkeeping record system that I use? Well, it also helps to, if you already have an accountant, bookkeeper, whatever, using something that they use, that you go hand in hand so you both understand it. So if I have a system and I'm using it, but I have questions, well, if the accountant or bookkeeper are using the same system, they might be able to help them, correct?
For sure. Yeah, there's, like I was saying earlier, there's so many different types of bookkeeping systems. So I'm familiar with QuickBooks Desktop and online. So if you're using Peachtree, I most likely won't be able to help you because I'm not familiar with Peachtree.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I always like to know, if I'm working with a professional, have they seen a business start from small and grow quickly or adapt, and how comfortable was that whole relationship for them? And also, I would like to know, have they worked with companies larger than mine in the same type of field? So, for example, if I owned a cleaning janitorial service and I talked to Amanda, I would say, do you have any cleaning janitorial clients? And she'd say, yes, I have 3 of them. They work at Fort Drum and they clean 80,000 square feet a night. And I would say, okay, that's bigger than mine. It's always good to know that your professional partners have seen situations that may arise in your business. So those are a couple of things that I would ask. And I also would recommend that that accountants or anybody seeking services, make sure your Yelp and Google reviews are up to date. And if you get a bad one, address it. Don't take it down. Don't deny and delay and get all defensive. Just address it and move on, because people will come for the drama. But give them the facts, and then there won't be drama. So definitely look at the Yelp and Google reviews and see what people are saying unsolicited, and don't put too much emphasis on the drama, because we all know what social media does. It escalates those things.
And sometimes, with the internet and social media, it's, yes, look at those reviews, but there are opportunities to then ask those direct questions or those concerns, or bring up those concerns to the particular bookkeeper or CPA that you're interviewing, and make sure that you feel comfortable with their answers. It's not your end all be all answer, right? That Google review necessarily, but it's bringing up other things that could be addressed to make you feel more comfortable in your interview process. So yeah.
And I guess, Liz, to go back to your point, you're looking for somebody who could grow with you.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Who's seen similar situations. Some of the questions that we've been getting today: how do I know when it's time to become an S corp? If I've been a sole proprietor, that's always a good thing. And just remember, when you're looking at reviews, there's 3 sides to every story: yours, mine, and the truth. So don't take it just because you read it on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, okay, we got a couple questions from the audience here. Are bookkeepers good when there's a lot of disorganization with the paperwork? Do they do the organization?
There's some that do. I'm all virtual, so I deal with things being electronically sent to me. I do have some clients that mail me stuff, but it's not usually like I have envelopes full of stuff that just get sent to me, and I organize it that way and then send it back. But it just depends on the bookkeeper that you hire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that might be a really important question to somebody who, not necessarily you're disorganized, but you're just really busy with the rest of your business and you don't like it. You don't like the bookkeeping side of it. I mean, that's what happens so much of the time for people, is they're not finding time for it because they hate it, so. Yeah.
I had a bookkeeper once give me just a really good example of maybe how to keep track of your records. She said, take 13 folders and label 12 of them January through December, and then put the receipts in as for the 12 months, and anything unpaid put in that 13th folder, and then as you pay it, put it in the month that you paid them. It was kind of like a easy way to just keep everything together, keep your records straight. And even if you didn't keep up uploading all your expenses throughout the week or month, you can go back at some point and just update your bookkeeping. So I mean,
yeah, that's exactly what I tell people.
But it works for some people,
especially the smaller based businesses.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Another question from the audience: when should I hire a payroll service? And what services outside payroll services typically provide?
I think if you don't have the time to enter your own payroll, if you have absolutely no idea what to do in the payroll world, I think definitely that's a good time to start asking around for payroll providers. There's so many local options. I think we were talking about Payroll by McWiz before. There's bigger brands like Heartland, ADP, Paychecks. There's local accounting offices that offer payroll. There's so many different options. And then just asking what they provide with their payroll. Do they how much they're going to charge you each month? Do they charge extra for direct deposit? Do they charge extra by employee? Do they offer any, health benefits or retirement packages that you can sign your employees up for? How is workers' comp handled? Are they going to be filing your taxes for you? You just got to ask, especially with the bigger ones, like, what are you going to be actually charging me? And then also, so if you sign up for like a promotional year, what's your rate going to be after that promotional year? Is it going to go up to like $300? What's it going to be? So just being aware and mindful of what you're getting from each person for what price.
Just remember that you have better things to do than run your payroll. You've got to run your business. And if you do your own payroll and you make one mistake, the penalty alone will probably cover the entire year of payroll processing.
Yeah, anything else coming up like for the advisors as far as what you hear from your clients with regard to handling payroll?
Sometimes even accountants and bookkeepers, your CPA, whoever, they'll do payroll service, right, Amanda?
Yep, some of them do. I personally don't. I'm not a fan of payroll. There's so many ever-changing laws, especially in New York State. So
Correct.
I have a bunch of other things to keep up with, especially with just normal year-end taxes and bookkeeping. So I definitely refer out to people that I know for payroll.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. One other question that's come up just as far as like, what should my overall tax strategy be? Just kind of like what you're starting to talk about, Amanda, as far as tax planning, basically for one year to the next.
So I definitely think having a good relationship with your tax preparer and bookkeeper, if they're different people. I do it both. For a lot of my clients, I'm the bookkeeper and tax preparer. So I have the hands-on throughout the month, every month. And but making sure at least quarterly, you're kind of looking at your patterns and your financial situation, and speaking with your tax preparer and letting them know your situation that you're in currently, so that they can go into their system and kind of help you create a plan in place. So maybe it's, you're going really strong. So maybe now's the time to invest in whatever equipment that you were planning on years ago, or, starting that IRA account and contributing to that, or maybe it's time we start thinking of restructuring your business and being taxed as an S Corp. It really just depends, but having that communication and good relationship with your tax preparer and being able to provide them information throughout the year so that they have a good knowledge to guide you in the right direction. And if there's nothing they can do, at least they can tell you, hey, maybe based off of this, put aside $1,500 into a savings account so it can earn interest. Might not be a lot, but it's something instead of just having to pay it all in at the end of the year.
Yeah, I have a question related to that. And just as far as people like looking into 401k plans for their employees or for their own IRA or, that kind of SEP account or does SEP still exist?
Yeah.
Self-employed pension, right? Okay, so do you recommend that people like maybe once they've been given a proposal from a wealth management, come to their accountant and bookkeeper with the specifics on those plans? I mean, do you have any thoughts about that?
I think for sure you should have some sort of financial advisor helping you with retirement accounts and even health savings accounts. And then also everybody just having that communication, like, you're speaking with your financial advisor and they're saying, let's start this HSA, health savings account for your employees, making sure your payroll service provider knows that and has that information. And then also your accountant or tax preparer having that information so they can help guide you. It's just that extra information to help make educated strategies for your business.
Yeah, because sometimes it can feel like, you're being kind of sold on something, right? Like a plan or something through a wealth management group. And so it's really good to have everybody involved in that decision, all of your professional people, and especially your bookkeeper or accountant. Yeah.
Yeah, making sure you're able to actually afford doing those things.
That too, for sure. Any other thoughts about that, or strategy planning?
Well, with strategy planning, I'm saying is don't wait until tax time to get that accountant bookkeeper, because there's you and Amanda, you know how busy you are right now. That's why it's good to get them involved during the year when it's a little slower, so they can analyze and see what your business is doing. What do you want to see, where you want to take your business, so they can give you the right strategies to help you out.
Yeah, that's great advice.
And I just wanted to put in a quick plug for our SBDC business advisors. If you're not sure what type of financial professionals you need, become a client, talk to Robin, John, or Kiah, and ask them. If you have a trusted advisor, if you really trust your bookkeeper, or you really trust your financial advisor, ask that person. It can be confusing when you think of you think, well, they're all financial tasks, right? Personal retirement planning and bookkeeping for my business and my personal taxes. Yes, they're all financial, but they all require a different set of skills and expertise. And to find someone who can do everything from personal financial planning to payroll to long-term business planning, that's a rare person. And I'm not sure they even exist. That's what do they call that? A rainbow unicorn or something like that? I don't.
And if they do, they're very expensive.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Yes. And someone who's great at personal or business financial planning may not have the ability to keep up on all the payroll stuff. I thought it was an excellent point that Amanda made. Make sure that what you're interviewing or auditioning these folks for is what you really need. And your SBDC advisor is a free, confidential, and completely unbiased place for you to ask those questions. And if they don't know, they will honestly say that, boy, that's out of our league. We just don't know. And we can help you find a resource that does know. But just really remember that just because a person has initials after their name, it doesn't mean that they're an expert in all financial aspects of all financial type transactions that you need as an individual, as a family, and as a business member, owner.
I was just going to add the SBDC advisors can help form questions if you're not sure how to, you have stuff going on in your business, but you're not sure how to word your questions to the other professionals. I mean, they can help you organize your thoughts and lead you in that right direction.
The other question that we have is, what concerns should a nonprofit have that are unique to their tax class?
Okay, so nonprofits are definitely a whole nother world, but making sure you're categorizing your income and expenses, everything has to be broken out, from fundraising to grants, and then on the expense side, again, fundraising and grants, everything has to be broken out and classed, so that it's easy for you to run grant reports and to pull up reports for your tax return, because there's so many questions that they ask to make sure that you're actually using your money appropriately and not doing any like lobbying or anything like that. So you have to be really specific in nonprofit bookkeeping.
Yeah, okay. One other question that came up for us during the webinar, or maybe it was afterwards, was what are the best practices regarding hiring family and children to help in your business?
So that'll kind of go back to your business structure again. So depending on your business structure, you can hire your children, and they still have to be on payroll, and you will have to be mindful to that you're not overpaying them so that you end up losing a dependent, because you need them to still be under that income level. But you won't have to pay the employer taxes on them. And most of the kids, depending on the situation, you can just exempt them from having withholding at all. But you still need to file your payroll taxes, showing that you've paid them quarterly, and then still providing them a W-2. It's just more likely, again, depending on the situation, just being like a gross check instead of having all the taxes taken out. You should still have unemployment taxes on them, or unemployment insurance and workers' comp on them, though, because they're supposed to be actually helping you in the business, not just a tax deduction just to send money out over here. So they actually have to be working in your business, helping you, even if it's just like their sole duty is filing. Maybe they're the ones filing all your receipts in your monthly folders. And it has to be reasonable. So you can't just, again, just funnel money through your kid. Actually has to be an actual deduction.
On record, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the things I often suggest, if hiring your first employee is the most expensive, and I sometimes suggest that if you wanted to hire somebody, bring them in through a temp agency and let the temp agency do all the back room work for you, the workman's comp, the taxes, and the whole 9 yards. Even if it's somebody that you definitely want to hire, run them through the temp company and let them do all that stuff that you don't have time to do.
Yeah, that's great advice too, for sure. Amanda, you agree with that? Any stipulations?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, especially with your just starting out with payroll and you're just kind of giving it a trial run.
Yeah, great. All right, well, we are at the 1 o'clock hour. I want to thank all of you for your great advice. I do believe we put Amanda's email address, at least, in the chat box. And I do want to remind everybody to please reach out to your SBDC centers. They are here with free advice and resources if you desire to become a client to get extra help, especially with regard to business recovery and bookkeeping and all of those important aspects of running your business. So Liz, any other?
No, thanks everybody for watching, and let us know what other topics you want to hear about. We're here for you. We want to help. As you can see, we have a caring, committed staff, very knowledgeable. We have some fabulous experts like Amanda in our hip pocket. And so tell us what you want to know, and we'll figure out how to get you that information.